God wants to speak to every one of us. So we're in this series, Ready, Set, Go. And I believe that God has so much for every one of us. Whatever location we find ourselves in, whatever situation we find ourselves in, He has a plan to bring change for the better into our life. If only we are willing to change. And if you missed it, maybe the first week, I just encourage you to catch up with that word on change. But this week, we are going to be looking at what it is to set. Okay, so it's like ready, which was all about change. It's going to bring change. Are you ready for change? And then now we're going to look at set and what set is all about. Now, this is the interesting thing, is that this part that we're going to look at over change is concerning, I think, our frustration with change. Many of us set out at the start of a year and we want to change. Sadly, we don't always achieve the change that we set out to achieve. So it's not always like a lack of willingness, it's a lack of commitment to see change come through. And I think we'd all agree with that. It's like, do you know what? Sometimes I'm so willing, but someone said this flesh in me is weak. Sometimes it's like, I really want to, but sometimes I just don't seem to be able to see the finish. So I'm going to speak to you about how we can see the finish. And it's all around this. Change is fueled by vision. What this means, right, is that you can change and try and change, but if you haven't got vision, it won't fuel you. You want to have a vision, but many of us don't really know where it's going to take us. Are you ready to say, no matter what, we're going to do it? When we decided and we were going to have a baby, you're in. You're committed in. It's like, we're going to love this little one. Do you know what? We're going to go through this. I was so shocked through labor. It was like, why didn't someone tell me? It's like some people dressed it up somehow, and people only told me the good stories. Guys, your vision, you got to realize, often involves giants. And the trouble is, we often think that, it's a great vision, I do some change. If you realize that great change normally involves killing giants, it means you're going to have to go in and there's going to be a process on the way. You're going to have to get ready. And so this whole thing of change is so important for us to realize. And I want to use this example in Habakkuk, first of all. Habakkuk 2, verse 1 to 2. This prophet, he, in chapter 1, you'll see that he spent the whole chapter really praying to God, saying, why are the wicked treating the righteous terrible? Why is there injustice? He said, why is there violence in the land? Why is there this corruption where evil seems to prosper and the righteous seem to be taken out? And he's like calling out to God. And then this is the response. He says, I will stand. So he's done his whole big prayer and his complaint to God. And he says, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see, going to get ready, going to get set to see. I will look to see what he will say to me and what answer I am to give to this complaint. He is saying, I'm ready to see what God is going to answer towards a complaint. Have you got that? Now, when we went to Belgium for the first time many years ago, we went there and I had an experience. I had a coffee like I'd never had a coffee before. Belgium, 20 years ago, introduced me to really good coffee. Up till then, I used to drink Nescafe. You find it in a lot of hotels around the world, little sachet you put in. It's pretty rubbish. Sorry if you're still on it, but I'll tell you what, there are greater things. There are greater things. This is so much like vision. It's like you'd be quite happy with your jar of Nescafe. You can live your Christian life with it. It's a substitute. Like, do you know what I mean? It's okay, you've got something to take away today. You can spend the rest of your life drinking this. And we did, because that's all we knew until we went. And they had this machine, and they sort of made us, this is like 20 years ago. And we had this machine. It was like, what just happened? Ooh. It was like this cot. It was like, can I have another one of those? And so, in time, we came back, and our lives would never be the same again. And we ended up buying a machine called an Espresso Setese. And that was just our particular choice, but I'm telling you, I never looked back since. I got a fresh vision for coffee all over again in my life. And the trouble is now I'm dissatisfied with my Nescafe. So if anyone wants it, it's a gift today to you. Instant coffee, granules, is what I grew up on and all I ever knew. Maybe there's something in your life that you just grew up with, all that you've ever known, and you're quite satisfied that that's your vision, but God has something more. See, I never realized until I came to taste, and God says, why don't you come and taste and see it's good what God has for you? Why don't you realize that God has far more for you than what you've actually got in your cupboard right now? Because every day we used to just get out of the cupboard. It's quite easy. It's instant, it's simpler. You just get it out, boil the kettle, spoon in. But when you have to sort of do the preparation, you put your pod in and you do your coffee and you get your milk in and do you know what I mean? There's a bit more work, and some of us aren't prepared for the change because we haven't got a vision to fuel the change. But when you taste something that there is more, God is saying to us today, will you put away your instant coffee, your instant Christian faith, and will you start to realize there's something far more? But you got to be ready. You got to be ready. So you'll be ready. You got to be set to go and journey into this. Why? Why am I saying this to you? Because the size of your complaint is the size of your vision. This is the first point. This is our problem with Envision, understanding this. So if you have a small complaint, and I know coffee is like a very small little example, but it's something we can relate to. It's like if my complaint is small about my, maintaining my garden fence, it will be as big as the boundary of my world. But if I have a complaint that is actually there is injustice in my world, or if there is prejudice in my world, if there is something about people don't even know Jesus in my workplace, if I've got a complaint, that sort of complaint, you see, has an eternal value. There is something like that impacts people. It changes things. And the size today of your complaint will be the size of your vision. So if you're here saying, actually, I haven't really got much of a vision, it's because you haven't got much of a complaint. And your complaint has almost been, it's like, it's really day to day or week to week. It's like in the world that I live in. But once you see Habakkuk, he started saying, write down the revelation, make it plain on tablets so that a herald, a runner, may run with it. So you've got to make the complaint. So why? So that we can run with it. And you can't run until you have a complaint. Some of us aren't really running very far, and there's not a lot of consistency because we haven't got a complaint. The complaint is more about the world that we live in, like our personal world, rather than the bigger world that God is saying, look up. There's greater coffee to taste. There's greater things for you. And like this is how we built the church. When we first started off all those years ago, and it took us 18 years to realize this that I'm sharing with you, our complaint was for our small town that we lived in, half an hour from here. Our complaint was for that small group of people. It was like, that's our complaint. And it was within the four walls, because we had just a handful of people. It was like we were going to live and die there. We're going to be faithful to the end. And then God said, I don't want you just being faithful. I want you being fruitful. And then when he said that, it disturbed me and said, okay, well, if I need to be fruitful, this isn't fruitful, is it? And he said, no, you need a complaint. In fact, you have just put that away and you've said, well, this is the town that we live in. Oh, well, these are the challenges that we have. And actually, no one's really interested in coming to church anymore. He said, do you know what? You need to start getting a complaint. So the very first thing that Heather and I did after about 18 years, he says, make a list. So we made a list. And what we did is before we wrote down the vision, we wrote down what was wrong. Habakkuk 1. And we criticized everything that we built in 18 years. And we asked the question, why have we built this? Why have we got a church that is really built for the people inside it rather than people outside of it? Why do we have coffee after church? And it's in that silver urn thing that we used to have in churches, still have it today. It's like a silver urn because you just put the water in the instant coffee. And you just get the plastic cups. Easy, simple, cheap. And God said, is that a representation of who I am? So I was coffee, Lord. He said, no, it's more than coffee. This is about the VIPs that are going to come into your church and the way you're going to treat them. And so we started saying, yeah, actually, we haven't got a vision for our cafe. And then he started birthing. And today, in many of our freedom churches around the world, we do try our best to give a quality cafe, to make some great cakes, to serve people when they come in. Why? Because we had a complaint about the coffee. Can you see where I'm going? But it's not just about the coffee. It's about the people. It's about valuing the people. We had no youth in our church. We had our own children and a few other kids, but apart from it, we had no youth, and we had a complaint about it. So we got in a minibus with a few of them, and we traveled all the way to the Netherlands to a big youth conference of about 2,000. It blew our minds, and we felt like this small. And God said, birth your complaint. Birth your complaint. And I remember being on my knees there saying, God, will you give us youth? Will you give us youth? Will you give us as a church youth? And it was then something was birthed in me. It was birthed out of a complaint. And he said, why can't you look to see this? And obviously in the coming years, we were then we moved from being at that church, and we moved where that town that we were living in, and we moved into Hereford. And from there, we ended up seeing so many young people come in. The people then, older people said, we can't come to your church because it's a youth church. I was thinking, wow, see, the power of your complaint can turn things from one place to another, right? You got to realize the power of that complaint. We then had the sort of job of trying to cast vision to older people to say, no, this is a church for everyone. We just got a complaint about the youth, but we want to have a complaint about all generations. But if you knew where we come from, you would understand it starts with a complaint. And there's a complaint in every one of you because God's people carry the complaint that changes the world. In fact, every history maker in the world, every one of them are fueled by a complaint. They were fueled by a complaint. Abraham Lincoln, slavery, fueled by this complaint that came in him, began a catalyst of change. And so you've got to realize, what's your complaint? And if you don't know what your complaint is, you're probably going to struggle to change because you haven't got the vision that will create the change. It's the way that it works. See, it's very profound. It's like, well, Christians, we don't want to be complaining. I'm not talking about being a complainer and a moaner. I'm talking about saying, there's our complaint, let's do something about it. Don't just bring me your complaints, right? We have a lot of people saying, I think the church should be doing more of this. I want to know what your complaint is and what you're going to do about it. That's what God needs to do. Every one of you, see, I believe there is like a birthing within the church right now of complaints, right? Complaints about in some of our nations right now about what is actually being, the laws that are being passed and the confusion around marriage and sexuality and things. It's like, guys, you need a complaint. You don't just roll over and say, well, it's a sign of the times. What's your complaint? What's your complaint? What's your complaint about lost people? Our complaint was we were in this town and we said, if we stay here, do you know what? We're going to be confined. So God said, right, we'll get a complaint. And we did. He said, right, move to Hereford. And then when we moved to Hereford, he said, right, now I'm giving you a complaint about Cardiff. And Cardiff was our first church plant. Then he said, I'm going to give you a complaint about Kampala. I said, what, Lord, have I got these many complaints? He says, oh yeah, we're just getting started. But there was a time for 18 years that my complaint was in a little room with a small number of people just saying, let's just look after these few sheep. And I'm just saying, God, it will blow your mind if you knew. There's a complaint in you, and I command it to come out. I command it to be disturbed. So, see, apathy just says, well, I'm not really concerned. Apathy doesn't have the energy. Apathy will look at the things that are wrong and how I can't change it. But the one who believes in change and understands vision, like that little baby Josh that we had, changed our lives forever. It was coming and you couldn't stop it. God's plan, his vision will come, right, in this time, in this year 2020. You won't be able to stop it. It's whether you want to be a part of it. It's coming. There's movement. And I was just warn you, be very careful not to choose what is familiar. Because we can choose what is familiar and comfortable over change. And we sacrifice the very best days of our life. That's what apathy does. It robs us. And I even felt in that week one that I was sharing that some of us are just tied into apathy. We know we need to change some things, but we've got no vision for our life. Why? Because you've got no complaint. And maybe you need a complaint about your health because you're going to die early. Maybe you need a complaint about your children because they're not walking with the Lord. Maybe you need a complaint about your marriage because it's not the marriage that God planned for you, and you need to do some work and confrontation with it. Maybe you need to come in and confront some of the things in your world that you need to speak into. Maybe there's something bigger. Maybe you need a complaint about your small groups. It's not something you should just be thinking, oh, we've got to attend small groups in church. But what can I bring to grow the church, grow the groups? What can I come, if I come and turn up with a whole attitude of not what can I come and get from it, but what can I come and give to it? So I've got a different vision. One's going this way, the other one's going that way. And if you start doing that, things change, you see. Things change. Like I've got a complaint that there's more, there's more. Actually, I've got a complaint that our church should be double this time next year. Like how many of you, is that the first time perhaps you thought of that? Because your complaint might be around other things, more personal to you. So the size of your complaint will always be the size of your vision. It's in you, but you've got to grow it. The next one, this is the scripture for the next one, Proverbs 29, verse 18. Where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained. You've heard this famous verse that's used in church, but again, I feel like this verse is quoted without the reality of what it means. And what it really means is it compares it with a woman with long hair. In those days, they would always have their hair tied back. And it's talking about, it's like a woman with her hair that's loose, and it's like, woohoo! She can't see where she's going because it's like it's in the way and it's annoying, and it's like here 1 minute and there the next. It's unrestrained. And it talks about vision is like that. That means that vision needs to be understood. It's not just having vision. You see, we all have a vision. Some of us have got a great vision for anxiety in our life. It's like, do you know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm going to gravitate back to it every time. It's like, probably the worst is going to happen. It's amazing. There's something in our thinking. Some of us, well, we all have a vision about money. Either there's not enough or there's more than enough. You'll be one or the other, depending on who you believe the source is. And you'll live your life according to it. So it's around the vision. We all have a vision. It's not like none of us got vision. Vision, even if it's unrestrained and it's according to feeling, it's loose. The wind blows it. We're blown this way, we're blown that way. Depending on what's happening in our world depends on our vision. No, vision says it needs to be defined. You see, he said about you need to write it down. You need to define the vision. Every one of us has a vision for church. Either they're trying to get something from us, or I want to get something from it, or do I want to love the church and give my life for the church? See, it all comes down to this. And that's why we'll have struggles and we'll have suspicions, or we'll have hope and vision, and we will move forward into all that God has. It's around vision. So you've got to start really asking these questions. What is our vision for that? What is our vision? So the second point is undefined vision lead to unobtainable goals. I find that people have got vision, but they're so undefined. You can't, if I went round at the beginning of our event today and said, without warning, tell me what your vision is for your money or for your family or for your, tell me what it is. Many of us couldn't actually put it into words because we haven't really given it enough time to actually, we haven't even made an agreement with our wife over it. Well, it's like up there, and we want the best. Want God's best. So that's not enough. You got to define your vision. You got to define it, because undefined is like trying to fire at a target that is a mile away. It's a pinpoint in the distance, just hoping I might reach it somewhere. And that's how many of us live our Christian life, is we're trying to just fire at the goal, at the vision, without really being clear about what am I trying to even hit. And many of us aren't arriving at the goal because we haven't even defined what we want to aim for. And this is what the Bible says in Habakkuk. It's saying you got to write it down. You got to make it clear. Why? So that the runner may run with it. Who's the runner? You're the runner. You can be the runner or you can be the observer. That choice will be up to you. The runner or the observer. Maybe you're talking about it a lot, but you got to run. You got to run after it. You got to come after it. Sometimes to pursue the new vision, you've got to kill the old vision. And when we were, even with us, when we first started church 18 years, do you know, we had to pull apart and kill some of the things that we'd built into and said, That's a day that's now dead, to be able to birth what's new. And maybe there's some things that you're still trying to hold on to that you need to put to death so that you can embrace the new vision for 2020. And when I talk about writing down your vision, you'll see on the slide here, there's some pictures of architect's drawing of a house. When we went through we had our own business years ago, and we went through some financial disaster where someone owed us loads of money. We almost went bankrupt. And through this time, we were going to lose the house that we were in. We built a house for our family. We were going to lose it to pay off the debts. And then God came and spoke to us, right, through a prophet. And he spoke to me, and I was just trying to hold on to my own house. And he came along, this prophet, and he said, it's time to believe that God is going to give you a bigger house than what you're in right now. And he's going to provide for you. And if you're faithful to build God's house, he will build yours. And I was thinking, you crazy prophet. You don't know that I'm here like struggling. I've got no way of like paying all this debt. It looks like that everything, the way I feel, and my hair's blown around in the wind. And I'm there thinking my vision's in tatters. And I just think like it's all over. And he said, even now you doubt God. He said, even now you doubt God, but God is able for those who believe. And do you know what? It shook me up, gave me a punch up, and we went away. And what we did is, God then just gave us the opportunity to buy a plot of land. Just sort of, it came to us. Didn't have the money. God provided the means to buy this thing. Then when we got it, we didn't have the money to build it. So we had the plans of this house. That was a vision and a dream for our family. And we put it on the back of our bedroom door for 2 years. And every morning we went out and we just prayed, God, this is the vision you've asked us to obtain. We're not going to lose. We're actually going to see the blessing of God. You're going to take us from almost complete loss into complete blessing. Because it's the God that changes all things if you only believe his word. And do you know what? He did exactly that thing. God turned up and he moved, but we had to get the vision on our door because I felt like God was saying, write it down, write it down. One of the other things that Heather did in our lounge is she had someone do some fancy writing on the wall, and it was that verse, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And people used to come around and go, oh, it's a bit Christian. Yeah, because as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And our boys grew up with that on the wall. Don't underestimate God's word and the power of the vision and the drawing. You've got to get the vision in front of you, people. You've got to get the complaint in front of you. You've got to balance the complaint and the contention that we will see the vision complete. This is all about set. What were we doing when we put it on the door? It was set. We're set. The vision, now we're set. Now we're set. We're ready. We're ready to go. We're set. We're set. We set the vision. We've set it up in writing. You need to define. Because if you don't, it's an unobtainable goal. So we move to the last one. And this is from Matthew 6, verse 19 to 21. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, Jesus said, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where's your treasure? Where your heart is. Do you know what that really means? If we could all have like a clever little app on our phone, it'd be really great if we could like gauge out of our sort of the time that we're awake through our day, what we spend most of our time dwelling on. I realize we all have to work and we have to do things and we have to take care of children and family and other things, but if you could actually gauge and at the end of the year total up the amount of hours that were given over to concerns of personal management of the stuff you have that moth and rust will eventually take, some of those things we have to do, but it's like there's so much more we give to it. How much more we give to the complaint that God's put in our heart and what we're willing to do about it. How much we're willing to have a vision for others more than ourselves. If you like have these categories, wouldn't it be fascinating? That would determine where your treasure is. Because where your mind is where your treasure is. And some of your treasure is rotten. Some of your treasure, you will spend a lifetime trying to preserve it and build it and save for it, and it will be gone in eternity. And then it will be when you have, because I think God's got that on his app. I think he's like, he knows all things. And he's going to go, hey, can we just talk about your potential and the vision I placed within you and the calling I placed over your life? And then we're going to have a look at, oh yeah, you got really distracted by that job you got stuck in. Oh, you got stuck in that town, didn't you? Because you weren't willing to trust me that I would provide when I call, I will always provide. You never fulfilled the next 5 years of impacting that place or those people. You never touched that person because you were too busy to get back to wash the car. Jesus has put it in here because he knows that this is a human problem. This is a human problem that we get stuck with building treasure up with what we see and what we feel around us. We build it around us. We maintain it around us. And the more we put around us, the more we maintain. We all have a vision. I was with someone who had it was a friend. Went to his house to visit, and he was like in a bit of a panic. He was stressed. I said, well, what's wrong? He said, I just need to make this phone call. And he's on the phone, and he's speaking to the specialist, and he's speaking to the specialist, and I thought, this sounds really serious. He said, I just need to go outside and check something. Then he came back in. I said, well, what's the problem? You got a bit of a challenge? He said, yeah, it's the swimming pool. He said, I think the pump is like out of balance because we're an inch up, 25 mil up. We're sort of up from the normal level, and that shouldn't be the case. So I've got the specialist. He's going to be coming at 10, so I just need to wait for him to come and you could see, right? I know you think that this is daft, but I could see and observe this person, right, who has a lot of stuff in his life. It looks perfect, but heck, the maintenance is killing him. And because there's not greater vision than the stuff that he has, what he's doing is he is worried about, well, what happens if it might overflow? It might, like, things aren't working the way it should. It's like it's not where it should be, and we need to get someone around here now. And God said, you know what? You can fill your life with meaningless vision. Some of us are filled with vision, but the wrong vision. Some of us might not have a swimming pool, but we have got other stuff in our life that we're panicking over that God says that is not going to help you in eternity. Yeah, we need to look after our stuff and be responsible and all that, but you've got to be very careful that that is not what is consuming your heart. See, I believe that God and the love of God should consume our heart. And what? Secondly, the love for others should consume our heart, right? How is that displayed? It's displayed through loving the church and loving the bride. You can't separate it. That's the vehicle. That's the bride. That's why Christ came. It's not sort of some Sunday thing. It's not some extra thing. It's not a thing we hang on the outside of. It's the center of what Christ is coming back for. And if he is at the center, your vision's got to be tied up with it. And I want to challenge for some of us, we have placed, as Christians, we have placed our job above God's call. And I know that many of you do a very important job. But I just want to, your jobs are important, but you just got to be very careful that you don't sacrifice a career or a job or a path that will actually deny the calling you were called for. Because not everyone is called to be a pastor. But you know what? Every one of us is called to be a minister. And I see a lot of people say, well, I come to church, I give. I'm a great giver. I've had people, they're like this argument with people. And they'll say, and they're lovely people. They come, they give, they serve, they do their bit. But, the way I see my ministry is my job. And it's like, you're a builder. No offense to builders. But it's like, how are you ministering? Oh, no, that's so I can give. I said, so you're going to give all of this time so that you can give. Do you think God needs your money or does he need your life? And it's not, we need builders. We need people that do those things. But if you're not aware, it goes together. If you're like saying, this is almost my identity has got wrapped up. My vision is in what I do. No, it's about who you are. And when you come to know Christ, it says every one of us are called to be ministers. My vision for every one of you in Freedom Church is that you're a minister in the world that you're in, no matter what job you do. But don't tell me that because I do this job, I can't really be a minister. Because I do this job, I clock out through those hours, but then I'm present when I volunteer and when I come in and I give. No, do you know what? It is a full-time call. Every one of us. Somehow we didn't communicate this when we preached the gospel. But when you came to give everything. So the third point that I have is if we sow self-focus, we're going to forfeit eternal potential. If we continue to sow our own self-focus in our own world to better ourselves, do you know what? It's going to get washed away. It's going to get burnt up, the Bible says. Those things, see, they seem like they're the things that make us feel good for the moment, but God is saying, don't forfeit your eternal potential. There's eternal potential in every one of you, but we so easily can have this self-focus, our world and our vision. If we go away from this message and just think about our own vision, because I hear people like talk, yeah, my vision for this year, my this, me and myself, and I'm just thinking about, what I want to do, and that thing that God spoke to me, and that word, and my. If we're thinking all the time about we're going to be very self-focused. You've got to think bigger. You've got to think bigger. Bigger than only a better job. That's a great thing, but it's bigger. Your life is bigger, right? Bigger. It involves people. It involves loving God, and it involves the church. It involves it. It's what you can't avoid. When I think about vision, what is my vision? I've come to realize my vision is a mission. In fact, it's tied up in the commission. Every believer, for every one of you, you're not just called to be a minister. You're called to go, take this gospel, this truth, to make Jesus famous, to connect anyone anywhere with a life-changing relationship with Jesus, and make disciples. That's our mission. That's your mission. It's up to you whether you have a vision for that, and it's up to you how much you'll invest in it. But all of us will answer for the potential that we realized, or the potential we ignored. Because there are people on the end of our vision. It's on the end of our vision. And I just feel like some of us don't realize. We just think, oh, well, this is it. No, it's far more. And I'm calling out vision today. I'm calling out vision in you today. There is more. Some of you stepped out and maybe it failed. Maybe it didn't go well. Maybe you got discouraged. People let you down. I'm saying there's more. You've got to go again. You've got to go again. It's not finished. The best days are ahead. The best days are ahead because that's the way that God works. So lastly, I'm finishing just with 3 summary questions for you to go away with. I want you to go away and actually say, what is my complaint? Talk with someone, discuss, what is my complaint? I believe that can grow, but what is my complaint? It doesn't be exhausted. Just say, what's my complaint? What's my complaint? Secondly, write down my vision. Write it down so that you can see it, because when you get discouraged, you can look at it and say, no, this is our vision. Write it down. Maybe put it on your door. Maybe put it somewhere you can see. Write down your vision. Write down your vision. And lastly, rather than saying, what is my vision? Why don't we say, what is God's vision for me? I want us to finish with that. I want you to ask, what is God's vision for me for 2020? What is God's vision for me? See, because it can be wrapped up in our personal passions and likes and, I just feel I want to help, do this and do that. And I had a prophetic word once about this. Ask afresh and say, God, what is your vision for us as a couple? What is your vision for me as an individual? What's your vision for the health over my body? Because if you haven't got a vision, you need God's vision. What's a vision for my teenager that's lost? God, what's your vision for them? Oh, there it is. There it is, Lord. Because I've almost given up, but God, what's your vision? What's your vision for my life? What's your vision for my finances when I'm struggling? What's your vision? What's your vision? What's your vision for those in my world? What's your vision for me to be a minister? What's your vision for my church? This will change everything. And it causes us to get set so that we can really go. God bless you, church.